Hey everyone, this is Black Binder, and today we are going over the Archmage class in Tales of Majeyal. Now, what is the Archmage? The Archmage is like your elemental caster in fantasy, like basically any wizard that you see. That's what an Archmage is. Now, normally an Archmage is pretty squishy, but if you know that you're going to be in trouble up ahead, or if you know something is going to be doing a lot of damage, you can pre-buff yourself to the point where you are one of, if not the tankiest class in the game, really only paralleled by probably a Paradox Mage. And the problem with that's the problem with the Archmage right there. All of their defenses are proactive, not reactive. Like, you have to cast them before you take the damage, or you're liable to be one-shot. That's my biggest problem with Archmages, is auto-exploring on Insane will regularly get you one-shot. Now, my answer to this was to use a high life rating class, which is like an ogre or a ghoul. A ghoul doubly so because they have ghoul resilience, which will stop you from being one shot completely, or they have the highest life rating of any race. But for most people, the 20% global speed malice is going to be too much to bear. So I would actually, even though the Shalor, which is what I have right now, is the best on paper, I would say make an ogre, or something else with high life rating, because an ogre has 13 life rating, a Shalor has only 9. You have to figure out a way to get over that gap to where you can auto explore. Otherwise, you're going to have to pre-scout every fight with Arcane Eye or Track and put your defenses all up before you even get into a fight. It's very, very tedious to do it that way. What I like to do is use one of my shields on autocast when I see enemies. That should be enough. But the problem is, like I said, you're going to be one-shot a lot because of your very low starting hit points. I think Archmages get a -4 life rating per level. And with Shalor only getting a 9 life rating per level, they can get some pretty abysmal hit point levels overall. But that is the overview. Let's go over the stats right now. For stats, you're going to want to go up to 28 at least for strength. That will give you heavy armor training. You'll have to buy it in Last Hope. The generic armor training, you'll want to take heavy armor to 3, so you can wear the heaviest of armors. Because of the way the Archmage works, it's a little bit backwards. Even though you have fatigue and it will affect you a lot, that's actually a good thing. You want to have low mana because that works in your favor, and we'll go over why later. Also, you'll obviously want to max magic. Willpower, also you're going to want to max willpower second. The reason why is because it gives you max mana, and max mana means you have more effective hit points. And that is due to Disruption Shield, which we'll go into more later. And then, as with most classes and casters especially, max out Cunning as much as you can. I have it at 59 right here, so I could get to 28 in Strength. Shalor actually have a -2 to Strength, so it's actually at 30 right now, but because of their -2, it's only 28. But that's it for stats. Let's start going over their skills. Spell Arcane, Mana Thrust. Conjures up mana into a powerful bolt doing 77 arcane damage. At level 3, it becomes a beam. The damage will increase with your spell power. Now, early on, this is probably your best bet for damage. 160 arcane damage at 5 out of 5, depending on whatever your magic stat is. Now, no matter what, you want to take it to 3 so it turns into a beam. Otherwise, it's only going to hit one target. Regardless of what build you're going, this is a good filler move. So even if you're fire, or if you want to go earth or air, which is lightning, I would still probably take 3 out of 5 in Mana Thrust. You do have a lot of places you want to put points though, so 3 out of 5 you can leave it there until endgame to see if you have the points left over to use it. Arcane Power. Your Master of Magic allows you to enter a state of deep concentration, increasing your spell power by 6 and your arcane resistance by 14. Alright. At 5 out of 5, this is only 25 spell power, and you are a debuff class. Not hugely a debuff class, but your main damage spell is a debuff, which is going to be Flame. But save this till the end because it's such a minuscule increase. 25, that's raw. It's not effective. So effective, it's only going to be like 5 by endgame. So just take it at 1 for now. I wouldn't even put it on early on. It's just not worth it for the 25 mana. Arcane Vortex. Creates a vortex of arcane energies on the target for 6 turns. Each turn, the vortex will look for another foe in sight and fire a mana thrust doing 19 arcane damage to all foes on a line. If no foes are found, the target will take 50% more arcane damage. If the target dies, the vortex explodes, releasing all remaining damage in a radius 2 ball of arcane force. The damage will increase with your spell power. Now, you can find Arcane Vortex on spell hit on the Void Orb ring, and it's kind of nice. However, as an Archmage, you have much better options for AoE, so this really isn't that great of a spell. You can cast it on him to make him take more arcane damage, but I usually just do this as 1 point, and if I'm literally out of every other thing that I can cast, I'll cast it. But this is 35 mana cost, and it's not a lot of damage, so I would mostly leave it alone. Alright, Disruption Shield. This is what turns things around for an Archmage. It makes them backwards. Normally you want to keep your mana high, but with an Archmage you want to keep it pretty low, or at least below 50%, so you can activate Disruption Shield when you need to. Surround yourself with arcane forces, disrupting any attempts to harm you and instead generating mana. Generates 1.74 mana per damage point taken. Aegis Shielding talents affect the ratio. The Aegis Shielding talents are over here. If your mana is brought too high by the shield, it will deactivate, and the chain reaction will release a deadly arcane storm around you within radius 3 for 10 turns, dealing 10% of the damage absorbed over the sustained duration each turn, up to a maximum of 1460 total damage. 1416. While the arcane storm rages, you also get a 83% arcane resistance, only usable when below 25% mana. The damage to mana ratio increases with your spell power. So, basically, what this means is when you run out of mana, you get one of the best shields in the game. It is instant. And also, when you take damage after that fact, your mana bar will go from 0 to quite a bit normally, especially early on when you only have 1 to 2 points in it. The damage to mana ratio is so terrible that any attack is going to max it out and explode it. However, when you get 5 out of 5 points in it and you raise your spell power enough, this actually gets very, very, very good. Now, what I like to do is when Disruption Shield, when I get down to about 25% or lower, when it's activatable basically, I like to activate it. And then when I get above 50%, that's when I'll start using my Runes of Shielding, or hopefully Rune of Reflection. You really would like a Rune of Reflection on this guy, or Time Shield, or whatever. So that makes it so my Disruption Shield stays active. It never goes to the top and creates the chain reaction. Not because the chain reaction is especially dangerous, because you get so much arcane resistance from the arcane storm raging, but because it's got a 30 cooldown ratio, and with the amount of mana you can dump as an Archmage, that's not going to be enough time to re-up it. So it's basically, with the Archmage, it's a dance with your mana. You want to keep it low so you can activate Disruption Shield, but then you don't want it to get to maximum. So if it gets to maximum, finish off your target, run away until Disruption Shield is back off a cooldown, basically. Obviously, if you're in the fight, you'll know whether or not you can take it without another Disruption Shield. But yeah, this is going to be your main bread and butter. No matter what tree that you pick, you need Disruption Shield. Alright, Spellfire. This is what most people go. They go Fire and then Wildfire for their Archmages. The reason being is that, I believe, Fire Archmages, they have a lot of easier ways to dump their mana. Look at this. Inferno costs 100 mana. Fire Flash costs 40 mana. But also with Wildfire, you get different ways to remove enemy sustains and stuff like that. And it also adds damage onto your regular spells. So I believe the reason why people take Fire is from an old guide that it was like an Archmage Madness guide, and Recovery and Madness is very difficult to deal with, but with a Wildfire Archmage you can actually get rid of that. But also, it's easy to dump mana with a Fire Archmage, which makes it easier to manage Disruption Shield, which I believe is a true strength of Fire, outside of the physical benefit shred. But let's go over it. Flame. Conjures up a bolt of fire, setting the target ablaze and doing 190 fire damage over 3 turns. At level 5, it will create a beam of flames. The damage will increase with your spell power. So at level 5, it becomes a beam. It's really nice. I don't like that it's a dot. because some enemies can get rid of that dot. However, it does most of the damage when it hits. I think it's about 50 to 75% damage up front, and then the rest of it is done over the 3 turns. So it's not as bad as it seems. It doesn't, like this says 211 damage. That's not 70 damage each turn. It's like 140 damage up front, and then the rest is dealt over the other 3 turns. So Flame, you're going to be casting this all the time. It's only got a 3 cooldown. So between Mana Thrust and Flame, you're only looking for 1 more filler in between them. Unless you get your global speed up high, which is possible. Alright, Flame Shock. Conjures up a cone of flame within radius 4. Any targets caught in the area will suffer burning shock, stunning them and dealing 76 fire damage over 3 turns. The damage will increase with your spell power. This is an AoE stun. It's pretty good. I would take it up as high as you want, but I rarely max it out early on. I use it for when an enemy gets too close and I can't run away. I'll stun them and then try to go from there. But this is a pretty good spell. It's just, you've got so much other stuff to do, you can't afford to max out everything that you want. Alright, Fire Flash. Conjures up a bolt of fire that moves toward the target and explodes in a flash of fire, doing 100 fire damage in a radius of 2. Alright, this is the thing that pyromancers are casting on you. It's super annoying. However, look at this. For us, the radius gets up to 6. And the range of it's only 7. That means you can cast it, no matter where you cast it, it's always going to be 1 position away from you. So that can actually be dangerous. So until you get some more of Wildfire, I would actually advise only taking 1 or 2 points in it early on. If you really do like corner sniping, go ahead and max it. I'm just saying it's very easy to get drug into this and killed. Well, not necessarily killed, but the damage the enemy does to you, added on to the damage that you're doing to yourself, can sometimes be too much. So I actually really only leave it at 1 in the beginning, and then later on I'll max it, because obviously it's a huge damage fire move and it hits a lot of people. It makes farming, or not farming, but killing trash a lot easier. Alright, Inferno. This is your big move. If you got Disruption Shield active, you don't have any other shield runes going on, and you need to dump a lot of mana quickly, Inferno is the way to do it. Costs 100 mana right now, but we have light armor on. That mana cost will go up significantly when we put heavier armor on with fatigue, which is good. It's good. It's not a bad thing. At range 10, you can basically cover the entire field with it. It's got a radius of 5, which is huge. Raging flames burn foes and allies alike, doing 51 fire damage in a radius of 5 each turn for 11 turns. So it's 510 damage over its lifetime. Well, actually like 560 damage over its lifetime. But I do like this for the added benefits with Wildfire later on, which we'll go over. But yeah, this is nice. It helps you dump mana for Disruption Shield when you need it, but it's also got decent damage and huge AoE, so it's just all around good. Alright, Spell Earth. This is mostly an Arcane Blade tree, but we will go all the way to Stone Wall. We're just not going to be maxing Pulverizing Augur is all. Pulverizing Augur. The reason why you want to take this on Arcane Blade is because you're going to be attacking with weapons anyway, and because this does physical damage, you can get a bonus to both your spells and your weapon damage at the same time. But obviously that's not the same for Archmages. Alright, let's go over Pulverizing Augur. Fire a powerful beam of stone-shattering force, digging out any walls in its path up to 1 to 3. The beam also affects any creatures in its path, dealing 109 physical damage to all. Alright, because this digs, I would actually take 2 points in it at least. But other than that, I wouldn't take any more points into it. But yeah, instant digging, if you've seen any of my other videos, is actually pretty good. The cooldown on this is really what kills it. It's got a 6 cooldown. It does good damage, but with the way Arcane Blades work, it won't trigger a cooldown if you attack, if you infuse your weapon with Pulverizing Augur, so the cooldown is kind of overridden. Alright, Stone Skin. There is a way, even with an Archmage, to overcome the cooldown, which we'll go over later. And with Stone Skin also. The caster's skin grows as hard as stone, granting a 7 bonus to armor. Each time you're hit in melee, you have a 60% chance to reduce the cooldown of an earth or stone spell by 2. This effect can only happen once per turn. Alright, so maxed out at 5 out of 5, it only doubles the armor, but it brings the effect up to 93% chance. But if you wanted to use Pulverizing Auger, this is part of what will help with that cooldown, but it's not the main one. So we'll go on from here. I take 1 point in it, and I do leave it on because it's only 30 mana and it gives me 7 armor. It's okay. Mudslide. Conjures a mudslide, dealing 81 physical damage in a radius of 4. Any creatures caught inside will be knocked back. I take 1 point in this. If I have no other way to get away or to stop an enemy, I'll try this mudslide to knock them back. But you can't count on it working because some enemies have knockback resistance. Alright, Stone Wall. Entomb yourself in a wall of stone for 5 turns. At level 4, it becomes targetable. Any hostile creature caught in the radius will also suffer 89 physical damage. Duration and damage will improve with your spell power. Right now, it lasts for 9 turns. Alright, with the addition of Ashes of Urok, this is not as foolproof as it used to be because Doombringers can walk through walls and stuff like that. However, it is still very good. If you know there's no Doombringers around, you know there's no Dreadmasters around, or Banshees, or Wraiths, this is basically invulnerability. It makes a wall around you, or, again, you can target an enemy with it and keep them in the wall while you run away. But this is very good. This is reason alone enough to go down the Earth Tree. I would probably go 5 out of 5 of it, 5 out of 5 of it eventually, but the last point you don't actually get an extra turn with it unless you go another mastery point, which, I mean, obviously you're not going to do. You might have mastery on your necklace, but probably not. But, yeah. The extra turn without the mastery, you might be to a spell power break point where that will happen. You're going to have to look at your own situation, though, because I'm not going to know how much spell power you have. So leave it at 4 out of 5. Actually, in the beginning, I only take 1 point in it, but eventually you will take it 4 out of 5 or 5 out of 5 depending on your spell power. Alright, Spell Water. Unfortunately, this tree sucks. It's not very good. A lot of enemies are resistant to cold and stuff like that, but it's just not... There's no beam spell with it, but we'll go over it anyway. Glacial Vapor. Glacial fumes rise from the ground, doing 13 cold damage in a radius of 3 each turn for 3 turns. It gets up to 27 damage for 8 turns. Not bad. Creatures that are wet will take 30% more damage and have 15% chance to get frozen. There might be a way to do decent damage with this with the wet condition, but I honestly don't know. Freeze. Condenses ambient water on the target, freezing it for 3 turns and damaging it for 74.12 damage. If this is used on a friendly target, the cooldown is halved. Not exactly sure why you would use this on a friendly target, honestly. It does high damage, but it's single target, and I don't know. It's very annoying when the Corpool skeleton uses it on you, but other than that, I mean, it's got decent damage, but it's single target, and, like, look at this. Our flame here does 211. This freeze is single target, and it only does 230. Yeah, it freezes it, but I don't know. Freezing something isn't always good. Yeah, it stuns them, but it also, you have to break through their ice block just to damage them. Alright, Tidal Wave. A wall of water rushes out from the caster with an initial radius of 1, increasing by 1 per turn to a maximum radius of 3, doing 12 cold damage and 12 physical damage to all inside, as well as knocking back targets each turn. The tidal wave lasts for 4 turns. All creatures hit gain the wet effect, which reduces their stun freeze immunity by half and interacts with other cold spells. The damage and duration will increase with your spell power. This is actually not bad because it tries to knock back each turn, so enemies will try to step close to you, then get knocked back, then step close to you, then get knocked back. But again, it's in the ice tree. You get a 2-point tax just for trying to take it, and you can also get this effect on a ring, the Varg Redemption Ring. But yeah, this is probably a decent spell if you wanted to go down the water tree just for this, but I wouldn't count on it. You might as well just teleport away or stonewall or movement infusion away. Anything other than sitting there and hoping an enemy gets knocked back twice in a row. Alright, Shivgaroth form. I like this one, it's fun. You absorb latent cold around you, turning into an ice elemental, a Shivgaroth, for 6 turns. While transformed, you do not need to breathe, gain access to the Ice Storm talent at level 1. That's what the Rimebark summons use, and Wrathroot. Is it Wrathroot? The tree at the end of Old Forest. Gain 47% resistance to cuts and stuns, gain 24% cold resistance, and all cold damage heals you for 97% of the damage done. Alright, the cut and stun resistance is irrelevant because the cooldown on this is 20, and it only lasts for 11 turns, so 9 turns you're going to be vulnerable to stun. I mean, you don't want to count on a temporary buff for your stun resistance. You just want it at 100% all the time. Gain 44% cold resistance. I guess that's okay. You can step in your own glacial vapors or whatever, but there are also other ways around that. All cold damage healing you for 130% of 7% of the damage done is nice, but remember what I said earlier. Archmages have a real problem with getting chunked or one-shot out of the blue. So healing yourself after you've taken the damage isn't really that great of an option. You want to shield yourself before you take the damage, and if you're shielding it, you can't heal your shields with Shivgaroth form, so it's just not... I like it. Turns you into a huge ice elemental. You get Ice Storm, which is fine, but it's just not usable on the Archmage class. It needs to be someone more tanky passively. Alright, air. I like going lightning. It's an option other than fire. It's just not as easy to dump, and also it's not as easy to dump mana, especially on single targets, but it does quite a bit of damage. And like I said before, lightning damage is variable, so you can get some really high hits on it, but I really like chain lightning. Alright, lightning conjures up mana into a powerful beam of lightning, doing 90 to 272 damage. The damage will increase with your spell power. This is really nice because it's range 10. I think so is flame, but this is all the damage is up front. None of it's part of a dot. So sometimes early on before I get the points, I'll leave fire at 1 and go 4 or 5 points in lightning instead, because I just find that this is easier to use early on. It costs less mana, and before you have disruption shield, you don't want to dump mana, but this is a good one. Even on my arcane blades, who always go pulverizing augur, I keep this at 5 out of 5 for most of the game. Well, at least into T2s and mid game, because it's just so nice to have an extra range 10 decently powered spell. Alright, chain lightning. Invokes a forking beam of lightning doing 28 to 84 damage and forking to another target. It can hit up to 8 targets up to 10 grids apart, and will never hit the same one twice, nor will it hit the caster. The damage will increase with your spell power. I would like this if it worked like the Mind Slayer's one. If the Mind Slayer's chain lightning spell, it's not actually chain lightning, but it's basically the same. If it hops over the same target, it will actually hit the same target twice. It won't bounce to the same target twice, but it can hit the same target twice if it jumps over it, because it's like a line beam attack. But this is fun anyway, because like you're going down a corridor, you see an enemy, or somebody tries to disengage backwards or teleport backwards, you can hit all the targets in between you and still get them. It's pretty fun. I like chain lightning as a spell. I've tried an Aether Archmage, a Fire Archmage, and an Air Archmage. The other two I haven't tried, but I do have some experience with these 3 schools. Alright, going into Featherwind. This is a good one. A gentle wind circles around the caster, increasing carrying capacity by 67. Excuse me. Defense against projectiles by 16, pin immunity by 100%, and stun immunity by 55%. At level 4, it also makes you levitate slightly above the ground, allowing you to ignore some traps. At level 5, it also grants 31% movement speed and removes 16 fatigue. It's not good removing fatigue, but 31 passive movement speed is also good. You can leave it, let's see how our mastery goes. You can leave it at 3.9, and you really don't lose much. You keep the fatigue, but you lose the movement speed and the levitating. The levitating doesn't matter, but the problem with that I have is you also lose some of the stun immunity. I don't like getting my stun immunity from a sustain, but this is too much stun immunity to ignore, and it also gives you 100% pin immunity, so you're going to have it up anyway. Be careful when you're in the Gorbat Pride or you're fighting anti-mages, or not anti-mages, but mage hunters, orc mage hunters, but otherwise you can work around the fact that it is a sustain. When you lose it, just be careful. But yeah, I like taking this to 5 out of 5 just because it's got so many good immunities, and I love the 31% movement speed, even with the fatigue hit you get. The fatigue hit, as in it heals your fatigue, or it takes away fatigue, but we want fatigue, remember. Alright, Thunderstorm. This is your primary way of dumping mana as a lightning mage. Conjures a furious raging lightning storm with a radius of 6 that follows you as long as this spell is active. Each turn, a lightning bolt will hit up to one of your foes for 1 to 27 damage in a radius of 1. This powerful spell will drain 1.5 mana with each hit. Now, this is how you drain your mana. Each turn, a random lightning bolt will hit up to 6 of your foes in a radius of... It's AoE. It's not just... Okay. It's a radius of 6, and it will hit one foe, but that one foe in a radius of 1, it will also hit those targets. So it's an AoE thunderbolt in a radius of 6. This powerful spell will drain 7.5 mana with each hit. Alright, so that's 6 times 7, 42 mana per turn if you've got a lot of trash. The problem is, like I said, fire's easier. This is 100 mana off the bat that you can drain when you need to. This one requires trash to actually be there. Or 7 mana per hit's not bad if you're fighting a single target, like lowering it, but I just don't think that's enough. And while this is a way to drain your mana, it's not the best way to drain it. Alright, Phantasm. This is the crap you see on those master vampires. Illuminate. Creates a globe of pure light within a radius of 6 that illuminates the area. At level 3, it also blinds all who see it except the caster for 3 turns. At level 4, it also deals 63 light damage. Well, let's see. At level 4, it's doing 131.83 light damage. Alright, let's actually take these out because to reflect what we're actually going to have when we're at level 50. Alright. Illuminates, it's not very good. I mean, blind is okay, but I'd rather CC them other ways or just kill them. And it's cooldown 14. That's the worst part. There is a Shadow Blade build that used to use Illuminate because they get auto crits with stealth, but that was nerfed into the ground, so can't even do that anymore. Alright, Blur Sight. The caster's image blurs, granting a 9 bonus to defense. The bonus increases with your spell power. Oh my god, 29 bonus to defense? That's fucking terrible. Don't even bother with Blur Sight. The caster is surrounded by there is ways to use this on an adventurer. Like if you're trying to make some kind of brawler adventurer, you can take Blur Sight and some other magical sustains like energy decomposition, and this can be useful. But as an Archmage, it's not. Phantasmal Shield. The caster is surrounded by a Phantasmal Shield. If hit in melee, the shield will deal 39 damage to the attacker. 81 light damage to an attacker for getting hit is not worth it. And it's also in melee only. If it was everything and double the damage, maybe. But with it the way it is, with the way enemy HP scales versus your HP, you can't take damage just to do damage to the enemy. It's not going to work out in your favor. So, no points in you. Alright, Invisibility. The caster fades from sight, granting 14 bonus to invisibility. Beware, you should take off your light or you will still be easily spotted. I don't know if that matters or not for this. As you become invisible, you fade out of phase with reality. All your damage is reduced by 70%. This powerful spell constantly drains your mana 2 per turn while active. The invisibility bonus will increase with your spell power. Alright. This sustain cost is 150 mana. It's not too terrible. It sounds big, but it's not. But just teleport away. I mean, the all damage reduced by 70% sounds like a lot, but you're going to have a lot of resist all anyway if you build right. Well, not if you build right, but if you go for the right equipment, you're going to have lots of resistances already. So a huge portion of that 70%, it's probably more like 30% resist all. So it's just not... It's not good, and 30 bonus to invisibility is terrible. I don't know that you could fool anyone with that. With high enough spell power, maybe it would get to be usable, but 30 is not usable. So we're not going to take any points in any of this. Alright, Aether. This is an extremely fun, not extremely powerful, but extremely fun tree. Aether Beam. This is the thing that you run into where enemies will cast it on you, and it'll do like a million different purple beams, like in a clock rotation. It's random, but it can do a lot of damage depending on where enemies move, but like I said, that's going to be random. You can't count on that. You focus the Aether into a spinning beam of arcane energies, doing 49. Let's actually look at how much it will do. 102 arcane damage and having a 25% chance to silence the creatures it pierces. The beam will also damage its epicenter each turn for 10% of the damage, but it will not silence. That means you can't just put it on someone and have it hit them every time it turns, which would make it too powerful. The beam spins with incredible speed, 1600%. That means when one person moves, it's gonna hit like it sounds like 16 times, but I know it's less than that. But I've been regularly hit for it like 5, 6, 7, 8 times before if I move wrong. So it can do a ton of damage. It's just not very likely to. Aether Breach. Rupture reality to temporarily open a passage to the Aether, triggering 3 random arcane explosions in the target area. Each explosion does 59 arcane damage in radius 2 and will each trigger at 1 turn intervals. So that's basically 59 damage each turn for 3 turns. I don't understand why I would use this. It's decent arcane damage, not really. It's got 360 overall damage, but it's confined to an area, so if the enemy moves out of it, then you're losing any portion of damage you would have done already. Plus, you kind of want to, I guess it's the same thing with Flame. You would rather have it do all of its damage up front. It just doesn't. But I have used it to some success, just not much. Alright, Aether Avatar. This is what makes this school awesome. Fill yourself with Aether forces, completely surrounding your body for 9 turns. While active, you can only cast arcane or Aether spells. Your cooldown for them is divided by 3. Your arcane damage is increased by 25%. Your disruption shield can be used at any time, and your maximum mana is increased by 33%. So it lets you use your disruption shield no matter when. You still want to have low mana when you use it, but still, maybe you know a big hit's coming and you can use it that way. But it also makes your disruption shield a crap ton stronger because it increases your maximum mana by 33%. And your disruption shield, its strength is based on your mana. The funny part is, I've gotten Mana Thrust down to 1 turn cooldown, so I would activate this and just hit Mana Thrust, cast, Mana Thrust, cast, Mana Thrust, cast. If you get above 100% global speed, you'll still have to put a filler in here every once in a while, but it's hilarious. You're just sitting back, firing out your Mana Thrust over and over again. It's pretty funny. Not super powerful, but funny. Alright, surround yourself with pure Aether, increasing all your arcane damage by 3.4% and ignoring 17% arcane resistance of your targets. At level 5, it allows Aegis spells to be used while in Aether avatar form. Alright, this is good. They get every spell seems to get one of these where it increases your damage and you ignore the resistance of your targets. But at level 5, this also allows you to use Aegis, which is a huge boon to Archmages that kind of need it. Or it's the reason why their shields are so powerful. But yeah, this is really good. If you want the Aether tree, I would take it up to 4 out of 5 early on, because that gets you to the effective talent level that you need to use Aegis. But later on, I'd go ahead and put the next point in there. It's free damage and resistance penetration. But yeah, you won't be taking Aether unless you don't have Wildfire. You have to do, I think it's like 1,000,000 fire damage over all your characters to unlock Wildfire, but there's also a book that unlocks Wildfire, so I don't know which one is more likely to happen sooner or later. But let's go over this. Blast Wave. A wave of fire emanates from you with a radius of 7, knocking back anything caught inside and setting them ablaze, doing 131 fire damage over 3 turns. Now, at 5 out of 5, this doesn't really do a lot of damage, but it's got a huge radius and it can knock stuff back. I would actually probably just do 3 points in it because you get an extra radius. Instead of going to 3 to 4, it goes 3 to 5, so you're getting more out of your points. But early on, leave it at 1 because you got too many points to spend elsewhere. Alright, we're going on to Burning Wake. This is fun. Your Flame, Flame Shock, Fire Flash, and Blast Wave spells leave a burning wake on the ground, burning all within for 32 fire damage for 4 turns. So that's basically adding extra damage to all 3 of these spells and this spell. Now Inferno, basically that's all it does is leave the burning wake, so it doesn't count for this, but it's really nice. It just adds extra damage to the main spells you're going to be doing damage with anyway, and it only costs 40 mana for sustain, so I like it a lot. The damage gets respectable eventually with increased spell power. Alright, so let's actually go right there. Alright, Cleansing Flames. When your Burning Wake talent is active, your Inferno and Burning Wake, which is this, which affects Blast Wave, and then these 3 spells here, the first 3 spells of fire, effects have a 10% chance each turn to remove a status effect, physical, magical, curse, or hex from the targets. If the target is hostile, it will remove a beneficial effect. If the target is friendly, it will remove a detrimental effect, but still burn. So you still get hurt, but it'll remove the effect if it's on you. So like you're obviously not going to be pinned, but let's say you get stunned or something, but you'd already cast Inferno. Because of that, you have a 50% chance each turn to get rid of that stun, or any other debuff that fits the physical, magical, curse, or hex. The hex one is nice to get rid of because the hexes all last 20 turns, which is just too long in my opinion, especially Burning Hex. But if you have to cast Inferno while you have Burning Hex on, the damage will already be done because it'll take your cooldown from 30 up to like 50, 55, something like that. Alright, so this will obviously be maxed out when you get here. And then Wildfire. Surround yourself with Wildfire, increasing all your fire damage by 3.4%, ignoring 21% up to 56% fire resistance of your targets, and reducing self-inflicted fire damage by 91%. Because of the way Burning or Cleansing Flame works, you need fire damage to do some damage to you, or this wouldn't proc. I believe that's how it is. I think somebody's gotten to complete immunity with fire and it wasn't able to proc on them. So, but don't quote me on that. So 91% is actually a good thing. So you still do fire damage on yourself. And then, yeah, that's basically self-explanatory. More damage, more fire resistance penetration, and it lowers the amount of damage you're going to be doing on yourself because you do a lot of AoE damage. Once you do get this up to 5 out of 5 or 4 out of 5, you can start taking more points in Fire Flash without having to worry about it. Let's go with that. Let's take these points out so I have more to spend elsewhere. At level 50, I would take the points out of Lightning down to 1. So let's go onward to Stone. This obviously pairs with Earth very well. Earthen Missiles. Conjures 2 missile-shaped rocks. Let's put a point in it so we can look at it. 3 missile-shaped rocks that you target individually at any target or targets in range. So if there's 3 targets, you can click once, twice, and 3 times on all 3 separate targets to do damage separately. Each missile deals 69 physical damage and an additional 11 bleeding damage every turn for 5 turns. At talent level 5, you can conjure 1 additional missile. That's why we have 3 instead of 2. It doesn't go up to 4, just 3. The damage will increase with your spell power. Alright. This sucks. Even on an Arcane Blade who's going Pulverizing Augur, don't use this because if you went the staff route for Arcane Blade, these are counted as projectiles, not procs. You can use it with Arcane Might, but they won't get the damage bonus from your accuracy because they're projectiles, they're not procs. Alright, so just leave it at 1. Body of Stone. This is a way, as an Archmage, you can make Pulverizing Augur more useful outside of Stone Skin. So let's look at it. You root yourself into the earth and transform your flesh into stone. While this spell is sustained, you may not move, and any forced movement will end the effect. Your stone form and your affinity with earth while the spell is active has the following effects. Reduces the cooldown of earthen missiles, pulverizing augur, earthquake, and mudslide by 38%. Grants 46% fire, 28% lightning, 11% acid, and 65% stun resistance. The stun resistance, don't count on that, but yeah, you know that by now. Resistances scale with your spell power. So it buffs up your resistances, lowers the cooldowns of your pulverizing augur. Mostly, this isn't for arcane mages or arcane blades. This is for the Stone Warden. The Stone Warden, I think their best build is the turret build, where they just sit back and cast Pulverizing Augur over and over again. It's actually pretty fun. I've done it before. It gets pretty insane, and then you can use your clones to kind of keep everyone away while you're just shooting your Pulverizing Augur, or maybe you're letting one trash hit you just to proc Stone Skin. It gets pretty funny eventually. A little bit of a slow start, but that's fine. Earthquake causes a violent earthquake that deals 24 physical damage in a radius of 5 each turn for 9 turns, and potentially stuns any and all creatures in its effect. So, decent damage, but I think this also damages you. I'm not for certain on that. But we won't be taking it anyway. You could take it on a Stone Warden, but don't take it on an Arcane Blade either. Alright, Crystalline Focus. This is why you come here for an Arcane Blade, number 1. Also, a Stone Warden. This is probably the main reason you'd come here. And then if you're trying to go physical damage with an Archmage, this is why you come here. Concentrate on maintaining a Crystalline Focus, increasing all your physical damage by 11.9% and ignoring 50% physical resistance of your targets. Also raises your physical and magical saves by 32. Alright. On an Arcane Blade, this is amazing because you should be hitting with your targets, and then additionally you're getting Pulverizing Augur procs. That's all physical, so you don't have to find very many physical resistance penetration items to make an Arcane Blade viable damage-wise, at least. But again, we're an Archmage. We're not going to be going physical damage, so none of this really applies to us. But I still wanted to go over it because of how it applies to other classes. And you can use it on an Archmage if you want. It's just not the way I would go about it. Alright, Spell Ice. Ice Shards. Hurl ice shards at the target in the selected area. Each shard travels slowly and does 136 ice damage, hitting all adjacent targets on impact. This spell will never hit the caster. If the target is wet, the damage increases by 30% and the ice freeze chance increases to 50%. Alright. These move too slow to be useful. However, if they moved faster, it would be actually pretty decent because it says hurls ice shards at targets in the selected area. So it's a radius of 1, I believe. So you'll see a target 1, and then in 1 square around it, it will also be targetable. Now, that's not on impact. That actually shoots a separate ice shard at each target in that little square. And then I believe each shard, when they hit, is also AoE. So if this could actually travel instantly, that would be nice. Or faster than friggin' 400% of base. It's just, it travels too slowly to be useful. So, no bueno. Frozen Ground. I tried to use it on a Necromancer. They get access to this tree as well. Frozen Ground. Blast a wave of cold all around you with a radius of 7, doing 174 cold damage, and freezing creatures to the ground for 4 turns. Affected creatures can still act, but cannot move. For each affected creature that is also wet, the cooldown of Shatter decreases by 2. The damage will increase with your spell power. Alright, this is bad just because comparing it to an Alchemist gets the same thing, costs a little bit more mana, but it's instant. And I believe it does more damage too. But yeah, it's good, but it's objectively worse than the spell another class gets, like just 1-to-1. Alright, Shatter. Shatter all frozen targets in your line of sight, doing 205 cold damage. Depending on the target's rank, there will also be an additional effect. Critters will be instantly killed, 50% critical chance against normal rank, 25% critical chance against elites or bosses. All affected foes will get the wet effect. At most, it will affect 9 foes. So it's just a big AoE blow-up spell, but I think you would have to use Glacial Vapors or Tidal Wave to get everyone set up for this, which I don't really like. I think you can go Frozen Ground with it too, but again, that requires them to be much closer than what you would really want them to be. Utter Cold. Surround yourself with Utter Cold, increasing all your cold damage by 3.1% up to 11.9 and ignoring 56% cold resistance of your targets. In addition, you pierce through ice blocks easily, reducing damage absorbed from your attacks by ice blocks by 100%. Now that part of it makes me kind of want to try ice builds because outside of enemies being 100% stun immune, which will stop being frozen, the normal way they get out before the debuff ends is because you're doing so much damage to them and it breaks the ice block. Some of your damage goes through the ice block, but not 100% of it. With this, it actually increases the CC ability of your freezes and it lets you continue doing damage to them. So I like Utter Cold. It's just the rest of the ice tree sucks so much, ice and water, that it's just not really worth going down it just for that but decent increase in usability. Alright, so the spell Storm Tree, this is you use with the Air Tree or Lightning. It's all Lightning, but yeah, you know what I mean. Nova. Lightning emanates from you in a circular wave with radius 6, doing 53 to 161 lightning damage and possibly dazing anyone affected. What's the radius on it? Radius 6 with a daze is not bad if you needed to run away or you wanted to stall the fight for a little bit. But other than that, it's not that good. And you have to raise it up to... what is it? Yeah, 5 out of 5 for the radius 6. Alright, Shock. conjures up a bolt of lightning, doing 74 to 224 lightning damage and dazing the target for 3 turns. If the target resists the daze effect, it is instead shocked, which has stun, daze, and pin resistance for 5 turns. The damage will increase with your spell power. Okay, so either you get a daze on someone, or you lower their resistance to it to a point where you can apply it with flame shock or something else. Not a bad spell, especially when you're going against one target and you want to stun it or slow it down in some other way. Hurricane. Each time one of your lightning spells dazes a target, it has a 62% chance to create a chain reaction that summons a mighty hurricane that lasts for 10 turns around the target with a radius of 3. Each turn the afflicted creature and all creatures around it will take 35 to 106 lightning damage. The damage will increase with your spell power. That can be useful. There's also some lightning-specific gear that makes your stuff dazable, like even lightning can daze targets, which makes this even more usable. But it could be good. I never got far enough along into my lightning mage to really make a lot of use of this. I did get to it. I wanted to max the next spell instead. Tempest. Surround yourself with a tempest, increasing all your lightning damage by 10% and ignoring 65% lightning or 56% lightning resistance of your targets. Your lightning and chain lightning spells also gain a 58% chance to daze, and your thunderstorm spell gains a 29% chance to daze. Now, I don't know if this stacks with the chest piece I'm talking about, which is the calm, but if it does, that would make hurricane almost an inevitability every time you cast. So, I don't know. I didn't get far enough to test that, but that would be something that could make this even more usable, outside of the fact that I like this anyway. So, we'll go on. Meta is something you're going to want to get, and so is Temporal. But let's go over them now. Meta. Disperse Magic removes... Yeah, everybody knows what this does. Removes up to 5 magical effects, good effects from foes, and bad effects from friends from the target. At level 3, it can be targeted. So you need to take it up to level 3, which is still 3 out of 5, just to get it to work on enemies. But another point in it is not bad, because you get 4 out of 5 magical effects. The 5 out of 5 doesn't actually do anything, so leave it at 4 out of 5. This is good. Remove things like Bone Shield, Essence of Speed from the final boss, stuff like that. Spellcraft. You learn to finally craft and tune your offensive spells. You try to carve a hole in spells that affect an area to avoid damaging yourself. The chance of success is 100% at 5 out of 5. In addition, you hone your damaging spells to spell shock the targets. Whenever you deal damage with a spell, you attempt to spell shock them with 51 more spell power than normal. Spell shock targets suffer a temporary 20% penalty to damage resistances. That's good. The bad part is, as a Wildfire mage, you still want to hit yourself. So we still want to hit ourselves for the chance of cleansing flames to take effect and remove bad effects from us. So this isn't amazing, but I don't know. I really liked the spell shocking their target. Whenever you deal damage with a spell, you attempt to spell shock them with 51 more spell power than normal. I wish that was independent of the crafting the whatever offensive spell so you don't get hit by them. But I don't know. I would probably, if you didn't need to worry, like if you're in a Shalor and you're late in the game, you might be able to get away with not relying on cleansing flames anymore, so you could probably take this up to 4 or 5 out of 5 and still make use of it. So that one's up to personal choice. Quicken spells reduces the cooldown of all spells by 30%. Does that actually get us down to 3 out of 2 or 2? You do want to use this, but you also need more. You're going to need more sources of lowering cooldowns of all spells, because I think it's either 50 or 60% will get you to cooldown 2 with your flame spell, which is nice. Actually, you know what? Let's take 5 points in it and just check. Of course, we are in Majeyal right now. It's not a place you need to go. It's an extra continent to the south of Majeyal. Where are you? Alright. Spellcraft. No, that's not it. Where is it? Quicken spells. What do we got here? We're still at 3. Let's see how much it lowers this. It lowers the cooldown of Pulverizing Auger by 1, so I think we're going to have to get up to 50 or 60% quicken for quicken spells. You can get quicken on pickaxes. I think you can get it on lanterns, and then chest pieces you can also get it on. Maybe even cloaks, I'm not sure. But don't take a bunch of points into quicken spells until you have the extra sources of lower cooldown. Otherwise, it's not going to... It will help you still with this stuff. Excuse me, but it's not something that's necessary until you can get it to work on Flame, which is your main damage dealer. Well, it's your main spell that you're going to want to use. Metaflow. Your mastery of arcane flows allows you to reset the cooldown of up to 7 of your spells that don't have a fixed cooldown of tier 6 or less. We only have tier 4 abilities, so I don't know why it says tier 6 or less. But yeah, you can take it out of 3 of 5. And then just leave it at 6 spells instead of 7. This has a lot of uses, especially with Stonewall and maybe even Inferno. Or you can use your... If you get screwed over with Disruption and it comes off a cooldown, or it explodes and you still need to use it for the damage reduction, this helps with it. So, good spell, really high mana cost, but again, that can work in your favor if you need it to. Alright, let's go on to Temporal. We want to take a point into Temporal as well. Did we... 1, 2, and 3. Okay, that's right. Alright, Temporal. Congeal Time. Project a bolt of time distortion, decreasing the target's global speed by 31%. No. Well, yeah, we can't get any higher because we've spent all of our points. Decreasing the target's global speed by 10% and all projectiles it fires by 26% for 7 turns. This isn't any good, don't worry about it. Time Shield. This intricate spell instantly erects a time shield around the caster, preventing any incoming damage and sending it forward in time. Once either the maximum damage, 303, is absorbed or the time runs out 7 turns, the stored damage will return as a temporal restoration field over 5 turns. Each turn the restoration field is active, you get healed for 10% of the absorbed damage. Aegis talent affects the percentage. While under the effect of Time Shield, all newly applied magical, physical, and mental effects will have their durations reduced by 45%. The shield's maximum absorption will increase with spell power. Now, sounds pretty good. All of that is awesome, and it's instant. So there's no reason not to use this. It's too good. The entire reason I go Temporal at level 10 just to get access to this to keep me alive in the T2s. What you want to do with this is actually right-click it when it's on your hotbar and just have it cast as soon as enemies are visible, so you don't forget about it. There are situations where you're not going to want to use it when enemies are visible, like if you want to back out immediately, but it's just much more convenient to leave it on autocast. And since it doesn't take a turn, you don't got to worry about screwing up, basically. Alright. Excuse me. Time Prison. Removes the target from the flow of time for 7 turns. In this state, the target can neither act nor be harmed. Time does not pass at all for the target. No talents will cool down, no resources will regain, and so forth. I don't really like this. I mean, I guess it could be okay, and it's a decent way to dump mana, but I really only come here for Time Shield. Essence of Speed can also be a good reason to come here, and I'll say why in a second. Increases the caster's global speed by 12%. Now, it gets up to like 36%. However, the way that I avoided... Oh my god, we gotta get out of here. These birds are driving me insane. The reason why I went to Essence Speed right away was because I actually went Ghoul for the double one-shot protection, the high life rating, and the Ghoul resilience. But the problem is they have negative 20% global speed. So what I did was I came down to Temporal just so I could get 2 or 3 points. I think it was 3 points in Essence of Speed for 24% increased global speed, which overcame the debuff of the Ghoul completely, which I liked a lot. Their racials aren't really great outside of Ghoul Resilience for the Archmage, and even Ghoul Resilience on most characters aren't going to be worth it. But that was just one way. I decided I always play a Shalor Archmage, but I die too easily. I get one shot out of Auto Explore all the time, so I decided to play him backwards how I normally do, at least race-wise, and I went with a Ghoul. Hold on, I'm going to sneeze. Excuse me, sorry about that. But yeah, Essence of Speed, it's nice, but again, this it's going to mess with your rotation a little bit if you get above 100% global speed. But global speed is much better on meleeers, in my opinion, because they can bump as their filler, and their bumps are extremely strong. But with an Archmage, I find you can do what you need to do with 100% global speed most of the time. But yeah, it's still a good sustain. Costs 250 mana is the problem. So if you do want to use it, you'll need to get some more mana somewhere. There are a lot of items that give you plus 100 mana. They're not terribly common, but you're going to lose out on other things, other stats if you go that way. And it's also going to make your disruption shield not as strong if you do go Essence of Speed. But again, I was a ghoul, I had to go that way. So that's the three category points we're going to unlock is Wildfire, Meta, and Temporal. You might be able to get away either without Temporal or without Meta, but Meta's probably the one I would get rid of first, just because Dispersion and Gloves are so easy to come by with the Cultists DLC with the Font of Sacrifice. But you can actually get by without either of these. It's just without Temporal Shield, it is much, much harder. Alright, let's go over their class skills. With Shalor, again, if you're on normal or nightmare, Shalor's fine. But on insane, I would go with a beefier class. Grace of Eternals. Call upon the Grace of the Eternals to increase your general speed by 34% for 5 turns. The speed bonus will increase with your dexterity or magic, whichever is higher. That's good. It's instant, and it's global speed, so you can activate it when you're running away, or activate it at the very beginning of a fight so you can get off all of your spells at once. It's just an overall good one. It will not stack with blinding speed if you find a ring of blinding speed, but it will stack with things like Essence of Speed, so good all around. Magic of the Eternals, I usually take this 5 out of 5. Reality bends slightly in the presence of a Shaloran due to their inherent magical nature. Increases critical strike chance by 10%. It's both melee and spell and mental, all 3 of them. And critical strike power by 20%. Just a really good passive ability. And it's good on everybody, so. Secrets of the Eternals. As the only immortal race of Majeyal, Shaloran have learned over the long years to use their innate inner magic to protect themselves. 21% to become invisible, power 20 for 5 turns. It's only power 20 when hit by a blow, doing at least 10% of their total life. This is just annoying. When you turn it on, it doesn't sound bad for 1 point, 21% chance of becoming invisible, but the power is so low it's never going to work against enemies you want it to, but also it makes the entire screen blurry and blue. So it's super annoying when this goes off. Take 1 point just to get to Timeless and then forget about it. Take it off your hotbar if you want. Timeless. The world grows old as you stand through the ages. To you, time is different. Reduces the time remaining on detrimental effects by 10. Most cooling down talents by 5. And increases the time remaining on beneficial effects by 5, up to 2 times the current duration. I don't really need to explain why that's amazing, but I will. Removing detrimental effects, it's all of them. So if you have a huge row of debuffs, and some of them are lasting 8 and 9 turns, this will get rid of every single one of them. Most cooling down talents by 5. Where could we use that with? Stonewall, maybe, but it's already got a 40 cooldown. It has a cooldown of 40 turns, so that 5 isn't going to matter much. But Disperse Magic, let's think endgame, final boss in Landar, you need to get rid of his Essence of Speed. So you cast Disperse Magic, but he's got so many other sustains, it doesn't actually target the Essence of Speed. So with Timeless, you can actually do them both at once. I wouldn't waste it unless you actually have debuffs on you, but otherwise, very amazing. It's got a fixed cooldown of 50, which obviously it's too good to not have a fixed cooldown of something really high, but its usage speed is instant. This can basically reset a fight for you. If you're going down, use it, and it'll bring some of your spells back up, or it'll get you ready for, or it'll get rid of the detrimental effects to the point where you can actually fight back. Spell Conveyance. This thing is awesome. I always go 4 out of 5 for Phase Door early on, and 1 in Teleport. Phase Door teleports you randomly within a small range of up to 12 grids. At level 4, it allows you to specify which target to teleport. At level 5, it allows you to choose the target area, radius 1. If the target area is not in line of sight, there is a chance the spell will partially fail and teleport the target randomly. That's the only part about this I don't like. You can't teleport through walls easily. It fizzles like at the worst possible times. But this, you can, As an Archmage, you have high enough mastery. You only need to take it to 4 out of 5, and you'll get effective talent level of 5, so it'll still let you choose your target. Teleport. Teleports you randomly within a large range, 141. Just a second. Alright, at level 4 it allows you to specify which creature to teleport. At level 5 it allows you to choose the target area, radius 19. Random teleports have a minimum range of 15, so you will at least teleport away 15 tiles. This, I usually just leave at 1, because the radius is so big. I don't need to teleport the target away. I'll just use it to teleport myself away. This is like the last oh shit button that I have. Because again, it can put you in a worse situation than you were in before. Normally, I'll use it after my phase door fizzles and puts me right next to an enemy or something. Alright, Displacement Shield. This intricate spell erects a space distortion around the caster that is linked to another distortion placed around a target. Anytime the caster should take damage, there is a 72% chance that it will instead be warped by the shield and hit the designated target. Once the maximum damage, 335, is absorbed, the time runs out, 25 turns, or the target dies, the shield will crumble. The max damage the shield can absorb will increase with your spell power. Alright. The absorption isn't high enough, and okay, how do I want to put this? I did it with the Shadow Blade recently, but Displacement Shield can be useful on an Archmage because it pairs with where is it? It does actually work with Aegis. However, I don't like that it doesn't work every time. So as a shield, which is something you want to use so you stop from getting one shot, this isn't very good. However, if you're using it as a shield to lower the damage you take over time, that can be fine on an Archmage, because you're gonna have the spell power unlike a Shadow Blade, and it also pairs with Aegis decently. However, this is like the last shield I would want to use. It takes a turn. The amount isn't great. The duration is great, but it also doesn't work every time, so I would actually not take any points on it. Probability Travel. And also you're going to have a ton of shields otherwise. Probability Travel. Sustained mana cost 200. When you hit a solid surface, this spell tears down the laws of probability to make you instantly appear on the other side. Teleports up to 11 grids. After a successful probability travel, you are left unstable, unable to do it again for a number of turns equal to 200% of the number of tiles you blinked through. So it's just, it costs so much sustained mana, and it takes 100% of a turn, so you can't even leave it off and then just use it in a dangerous situation. But also, where are we going with this? The cooldown. Let's say you actually teleport a decent amount of way. Let's just say 10. The cooldown on it's going to be 20. Like, that's insane. It's just not. If there was no cooldown on it, I would like it. The sustained mana cost would be worth it, but it's just not worth it with the huge sustained mana cost, and it's not even better than Phase Door. Phase Door is a cooldown of 8 and a range of 10. If we did range 10 on this, it would be a 20 cooldown plus a 200 upfront mana cost. It's just not worth it. Boo. Boo you both. Alright, Arcane Eye. Now, if you are playing an Archmage the way you're supposed to, you will use Arcane Eye quite a bit, which is to say scout out the fight beforehand and shield up before you actually get to the fight. I don't like doing that all the time, so I don't take Arcane Eye a bunch, but I do realize it's a good spell. Summons an ethereal magical eye at the designated location that lasts for 29 turns. The eye cannot be seen or attacked by other creatures and possesses magical vision that allows it to see any creature in a 10 range around it. It does not require light to do so, but it cannot see through walls. Casting the eye does not take a turn. Only one Arcane Eye can exist at any given time. At level 4, if cast on a creature, it will follow it until it expires or until the creature dies. At level 5, it will place a magical marker on the creatures, negating invisibility and stealth effects. Alright, so basically, if you can cast it over the wall or something like that, and see what's on the other side for a long damn time, 29 turns. Or you can cast, if you're trying to run away from something, you can cast it on the guy that's following you and then teleport away, and it'll follow him around, and it'll basically it'll warn you when when the guy's getting too close to you. Like if you're trying to lower your cooldowns or something, it'll tell you when you need to pop around a different corner or you need to teleport away again. So it is useful even if you're not using it for pre-scouting. I just rarely do. Keen senses. You focus your senses, getting information from moments in the future. Improves your capacity to see invisible foes by 12. Useless, or for me, useless. I don't care about it. Especially since we're not melee, we don't care about seeing invisible foes. We'll just blow them up. We know where they are. To see through stealth by 5 and perform critical spell cast by 3%. Now, it's got a sustained mana cost of 40, and the only useful part of this is the critical strike chance. The effects will improve with your spell power. If this could get above 10%, with spell power, improvements to spell power, then I would use it. But I've never gotten to the point with an Archmage where it did get above 10%, so I can't say whether it's useful or not. Vision. Form a map of your surroundings in your mind in a radius of 8. This is the same as the Burning Star Gem. It doesn't show enemies, it just shows the layout. It's useful if you're relying on infravision. If you got a really good lantern that has infravision instead of light radius, this is nice, because then with both of them you can see everything. You can see the walls and the enemies with infravision. Alright, Premonition. Echoes of the future flash before your eyes, allowing you to sense some incoming attacks. If the attack is not physical, you will excuse me. You will erect a temporary shield that reduces all damage of this type by 16% for 5 turns, 23% at 5 out of 5. This effect can only happen once every 5 turns and happens before the damage is taken. That's good. The bonus will increase with your spell power. So, it is a sustained mana cost of 120, but you need this as... you want enemies to be far away from you. Okay, hold on. How do we want to do this? It's not going to stop melee enemies from damaging you, but it will stop, let's say, casters that are firing on you from afar. It's going to lower the damage that they send at you before you actually take that damage. Like a pyromancer is going to mostly have fire damage. So when he shoots at you the first time, you know it's fire damage. When he shoots at you the second time, it's also probably going to be fire damage. So those 2 shots right there, even the first one, are lowered by 23% damage, which is really nice. You can get to a point where some Rand bosses will fire one element at you and then a different element, especially on the final boss. That's kind of how it ends up every time, but it's still good otherwise. Aegis. Alright, Arcane Reconstruction. Imbues your body with arcane forces, reconstructing it to a default state, healing for 380 life. The life healed will increase with your spell power. I just take this to 1, and sometimes I use it. Most of the time I don't. But yeah, it's a decent heal, I guess. I don't like taking it over 1 out of 5. Shielding. Surround yourself with strengthening arcane forces. Every damage shield, time shield, displacement shield, and disruption shield affecting you has its power increased by 44%. So, if we take... how do I want to do this? If I take time shield, I wish this would be higher so I could test it easier. But anyway, let's just say it's 500 is a decent time shield late game. But if you have this on, it turns into a 750 time shield. So it's actually... This is decent. The problem is it's got a high sustain cost for early on. Sustaining 40 mana early on is just not something you want to do just for a tiny increase. And also, because our shields haven't had time to scale yet, this isn't going to give you as much. But late game, or even slightly past T2s is when I'll probably turn it on. It's pretty amazing. I really like this eventually. At level 5, it also increases the duration of all shields by 1 turn. That really doesn't matter because your shields are already going to last long enough, or they're going to get broken by damage most likely before they run out in duration. But, I mean, it's still a buff, and you want to take it up to level 5 anyway. Well, let's see, it's 4 out of 5. So, yeah, you want to take it to 4 out of 5 anyway because it hasn't hit diminishing returns crazily yet. You're still getting 3% out of it. But again, that level 5 happens at 4 out of 5, not 5 out of 5. Arcane Shield. Surround yourself with protective arcane forces. Each time you receive a direct heal, not a life regeneration effect, you automatically gain a damage shield equal to 53% of the heal value for 3 turns. This will replace an existing damage shield if the new shield value and duration would be greater than or equal to the old. Now, I have a sneaking suspicion this works with Bathe in Light in a weird way that makes Bathe in Light even better, but I don't know for certain. Otherwise, this sucks. Like, okay, This sucks until you get to the very end game where you have insane amounts of heal mod and you also have arcane reconstruction maxed out. With let's say we get up to the max of 250% heal mod. So, and we have the spell power to get this up to 500. That means 500 times 2.5 would be what, 1250. Let's just say around there. The math isn't completely accurate, but close enough. 1250. So we heal ourselves. 53% of that is only going to be 630 some shield, which is going to pale in comparison to other things like your time shield with shielding. But I don't know. Actually, I don't know. This might stack with this as well. It's 2 degrees of separation though, so I don't know if they're in the right order in the code to actually work together. But I usually don't have the points to take this anyway, or arcane reconstruction, so I leave these 2 at 1. This is actually more annoying than anything because you'll need a tiny heal or something, and this arcane reconstruction will throw like a 60 shield on you or something, and it's just not worth it. Aegis. Release arcane energies into any magical shield currently protecting you, further charging it by 55% of its max absorb value. So it will affect at most 3 shields. That part doesn't really matter because you really only want it to affect 1 or 2 shields if you have Disruption Shield on at the same time. But effective shields are Damage Shield, Time Shield, Displacement Shield, and Disruption Shield. I always use this with Time Shield. Sometimes, I guess, I would also use it with Disruption Shield. With Disruption Shield, it's a little different. It like increases your maximum mana. So it's weird with Disruption the way it works based off your mana. But with Time Shield, what I usually do is I'll always start the fight off with Time Shield even if I don't have it on autocast. And then I'll immediately hit Aegis and boost it by 71% of its max absorb value. So, what was it? I was level 39, I think, on my last Archmage, the Ghoul one. When I hit Time Shield plus Aegis, it would give me a 1250 shield, and it's both instant. And that's not even the max of what I could have gotten. Like, I didn't have this maxed out yet, and I certainly wasn't maxed out on equipment and spell power. But Cunning Survival, you can forget about that. We're not going to be taking Tinkers on this guy. Tinkers are good still, but what you want is you want to find Celestial Light with a an Anorithal Escort, and take the Celestial Light skill tree, and with your 4th category point, not necessarily the 4th one, but one of your category points goes into Celestial Light. We can get with that. The heal is fine. Bathe in Light gets insanely strong. Like seriously, I was level 39 on my Ghoul. I didn't have maxed out heal mod or anything, and my Bathe in Light was getting over 1100 damage shield just from using it out of nowhere. I didn't have any shield I was refreshing. It was just Bathe in Light that was giving me 1100 worth of shields. And then Barrier also with high crit and crit multiplier. Barrier is one of those shields that can actually crit. So I had Barrier at level 1, right? And I had Temporal shielding at 3 out of 5, and my Barrier was giving me about the same amount of shielding as my Time Shield, which is just, that's hilarious. You can, Barrier also lasts 10 turns, which is pretty good. And I didn't even have the critical multiplier really to take advantage of that. I just noticed once I cast it, it crit, and it was almost as good as my Time Shield, which the Time Shield has such a better base value. I think at 5 out of 5, Barrier has like 200 absorb value, which is terrible. I think that's like one. Yeah, it's not even 1 out of 5. Time Shield is better than that. But yeah, it gets in game. I would actually say Barrier is probably one of the better shields, not counting like Disruption Shield, just on pure damage absorption wise. And then on the 4th skill for Providence or for Celestial Light, it's called Providence. It removes a detrimental effects. It removes 1 detrimental effect each turn for 5 to 6 turns, depending on your mastery. It's good. It can't keep up in insane late game with the amount of debuffs you're going to be taking, but it's still better than not having it. I usually pre-cast Providence to maybe hit Confusion or Inner Demons if Inner Demons gets on me. but Providence, it's too slow to react with it, so I usually use it proactively when I know something's going to debuff me. But yeah, that is a lot of damn friggin' skills for Archmage. They've got so many different ways to build them. You can build them fire, you can build them Aether, you can even build them earth, and then lightning. I usually do either fire or arcane and lightning are pretty much on the same level for me. Earth comes in second to last, and then water is obviously last. But where do we want to go from here? Let's go over our category points. All right, we've kind of already gone over this a little bit, but let's go in order what we're going to want to get. At level 10, what do we want? At level 10, I would probably go Wildfire. And then at level 20, you're either going to... Or no, at level 10 is Temporal, I'm sorry. At level 10 is Temporal, just 4 times shield. At level 20, you probably want to go Wildfire, but at this time, you're also going to have Celestial Light. The problem with Celestial Light is it really gets better later on, so probably want to go Wildfire. Now, at level 36, that's when you have the choice between Meta and Celestial Light. I would still go Meta because Disperse Magic is fun to have. If you don't want to go Meta, if you find good Dispersion Gloves and you don't want to bother gearing for lower cooldown and stuff like that, what I would go there is Inscription instead of Celestial Light. And then when you get the Worm Bile 4th category point, then throw that into Celestial Light. And then at that point, you should have a bunch of generics left over because we are still missing our generic armor tree. But the generic armor tree, you're just 3 out of 5 or 5 out of 5 for heavy armor, and then 5 out of 5 for thick skin. But even at that point, you should have quite enough points to throw into Celestial Light at around level 40 or 42, depending on when you get back from the Far East. So that's what we do for category points. Let's go on to Prodigies. Prodigies, it's really boring for an Archmage because they kind of need Cauterize. Cauterize, your inner flame is strong. Each time that you receive a blow that would kill you, your body is wreathed in flames. The flame will cauterize the wound, fully absorbing all damage done this turn, but they will continue to burn for 8 turns. Each turn, 10% of the damage absorbed will be dealt by the flames. This will bypass resistances and affinity. It seems like this would end up being a lot of damage. It seems like this would be a lot of damage you're taking, but I've never had it actually do a bunch of damage to me. I don't understand why. It's got a cooldown 12, so basically every 12 turns you can block a one-shot. It is actually really nice. I used to hate it, but I took it on my last Archmage and it was proccing all the damn time. Alright, for their second point, there's really not a lot you can do. You can actually go an extra Inscription slot if you go Worldly Knowledge for your Celestial Light. But that always seems like a waste because there's so many cool abilities on here. It's just hard to take Worldly Knowledge just for a tree you can get from an escort. Aether Permeation, you manifest a thin layer of Aether all around you. Any attack passing through it will check arcane resistance instead of the incoming damage resistance. In effect, all of your resistances are equal to 66% of your arcane resistance, which is increased by 20%, and the cap is increased by 10%. This is actually kind of a debuff, so I would not take this. It's not hard to get above 50% resistances and everything, and 66% of 70%, or no, it's actually 66% of 80% because your arcane resistance cap is up. Let's actually go ahead and check that out with the calculator. 80 times 0.66 equals 52. So if you maxed out your arcane resistance, which isn't easy to do, it's hard to find arcane resistances, then you would have 52.8% resist all, and that's serviceable, but you want to get above that too. So anytime you do get above 52% resist all, or resistances on specific resistances like acid, fire, lightning, stuff like that, that Aether Permeation is going to be wasted. What else would I say? Draconic Will is okay, but you get it by eating the worm, the heart of the sandworm queen. I think so long as you don't corrupt it. You can get this. Your body is like that of a drake, easily resisting detrimental effects for 5 turns. No detrimental effects may target you. The problem is you got to use it beforehand. It is instant, but it's just annoying to have to use it beforehand. Elemental Surge. I've tried this with Elemental Fury, the ring that splits your damage, but it'll only work for the first instance of damage that's done on the character log, and I think it's usually fire with the Elemental Fury ring. Alright, Elemental Surge. Surround yourself with an elemental aura. When you deal a critical hit with an element, which should happen quite often, you have a chance to trigger a special effect. Arcane damage has a 30% chance to increase your spellcasting speed by 20%. That's okay. Fire damage has a 30% chance to cleanse all physical or magical detrimental effects on you. That's actually pretty good. Cold damage has a 30% chance to turn your skin into ice for 5 turns, reducing physical damage taken by 30%, increasing armor by 38, and dealing 100 ice damage to attackers. That's okay, but we're not doing cold damage. For lightning archmages, lightning damage has a 30% chance to transform you into pure lightning for 5 turns. Any damage will displace you to an adjacent tile and ignore the damage. So that's basically like a lightning rune. Light damage has a 30% chance to create a barrier around you. We're not doing light damage. Nature damage, yeah, we're not doing that type of damage either. This is okay, especially for fire. That's not a bad effect to have happen on crits. Eye of the Tiger is one that you could pick. All Steam Tech criticals. Oh, hold on. Where is it? All spell criticals reduce the remaining cooldown of a random spell talent by 1, which is decent, especially if you're alternating between these two. That can overcome the cooldown that you need. But otherwise, I would say Unbreakable Will is okay too. Your will is so strong that you simply ignore mental effects used against you. Warning, this has a cooldown. Spine of the World is okay. Your back is as hard as stone. Each time you are affected by a physical effect, your body hardens, making you immune to all other physical effects for 5 turns. Basically, I would say take whatever you want for the second Prodigy. It really doesn't matter. If I had to choose, it would be either Eye of the Tiger or Elemental Surge if I was going fire damage. But one of the debuff resistances, Unbreakable Will, Draconic Will, or Spine of the World is probably what I would take otherwise. But yeah, definitely start off with Cauterize. It's going to help you out in the long run. It's going to save you from losing all your dang lives. For runes and infusions, you want 2 shield runes, if you can find good ones, and a rune of reflection. Shield runes do not count as the same type of rune as Rune of Reflection, so you can actually have 3 shielding runes, so long as one of them is the Rune of Reflection. And other than that, if you do take an inscription slot with Worldly Knowledge, you can go a movement speed infusion. You're only going to have 3 slots, which sucks unless you do go the Worldly Knowledge route. That almost makes it sound like you probably should go the Worldly Knowledge route with Prodigies for Celestial Light. But definitely, you do need 1 movement infusion, so late game anyway, especially for the last fight, it's just too helpful not to have it. So with all your teleports and stuff, you can get away without having a movement infusion for too long or for a while. But endgame, replace one of the shielding runes with a movement infusion. You should be fine at that point. Like, your shields will scale so well that you shouldn't be running out of them, especially with Stonewall and Disruption Shield by the time your Time Shield and the other 2 runes kind of come back off a cooldown. Itemization. What do we want for itemization? Spell crit. Since your main damage dealer is a debuff, you have to get spell power to the point where prioritize spell power over spell crit, at least up until the point where you can beat the saves of the final bosses. Automaton, for me, had 117 spell save. I was able to beat his spell save with my Paradox Mage, but I had to use Spellbinding and Power just to get my debuff to work on him. So I don't know how useful an Archmage is going to be against Automaton, because they don't have as many ways of increasing their spell power as a Paradox Mage does. So on your gear, you're going to need spell power on it, at least up until the final boss. After that, I mean, up into the amount that the final bosses have. What else? You can go the lower cooldown route if you want, with the pickaxe, lantern, chest, and I think cloak. But that requires a specific build, and that requires you going meta. But also, early on, you need to find plus life items. If it's with con, go ahead and get con, but if that's the only way you can find it. But you need extra life. It's so important that you don't start getting one shot. It's going to seem like it's super easy in tier 1s, but once you get to tier 2s, like coming around the corner in Old Forest, I'll just get one shot out of nowhere. So you need to find your defenses where available. Definitely wear heavy and massive armor. The fatigue both helps you, and heavy and massive armor is stronger than light armor. Obviously, it's got better defenses even with the light armor training. What else? Fire damage and fire penetration. You still need, let's see what it is. You still need about 34% fire resistance penetration, which is easy to find. So you should be able to stack a bunch of fire damage percentage. The more you can stack, the easier going it's going to be endgame, because I found level 39, I was starting to do the prides, and it just was getting to be a slog because I could not break through the Rand bosses easily enough with the piddly amount of damage I was doing. He is a caster, he has no way to do damage other than himself actually doing the damage. So unlike a Cultist of Entropy who can do his damage, which the Cultist of Entropy damage will beat a Archmage on their own, plus the Herald almost doubles what an Archmage can do. So really take your time, be safe. You have enough utility to make battles go on forever because of Disruption Shield and because of the amount of ways you can put enemies away or put yourself away from enemies with Stonewall and Teleport and shields and stuff like that. So it's not... Plus damage is kind of the last thing that you're going to want with fire damage, but it's the last priority thing that you want. So long as you can damage the enemies faster they can heal, then that's really the only thing you need to do. It's just, for me on a personal level, I can't stand it when it slows down so much endgame with casters. Like the summoner also slows down an insane amount endgame. But yeah, I think that's where we're going to leave it off for itemization. Just get health. And be careful when you're trading off mid-game or late-game the health items, because you're still within one-shot territory. It's just Cauterize can kind of pick up the slack for you there. But yeah, so please leave a like or comment below, and feel free to subscribe for more full guide videos like this one. I haven't written down what I say, so I have to change it. So yep, take it easy.